I'm using the very last of the carrots from my garden. Okay, folks, so it's snowed quite a bit since the last time I chatted with you, and I think we got about 9 inches on the ground. I was reading and researching on this one website, which is really good, and I will link to that below. And what I want to talk today about was some of the things I've been thinking about as far as cutworms and slugs. So I want to do what's called like either a sacrificial bed or plant stuff that is detracting to slugs, and see if that can't help with keeping the slugs from coming into the garden, or like maybe minimizing it to the extent that I can. And so a sacrificial bed is something you plant something out there that they like to eat, and so they'll stay there and eat it rather than coming in and eating other things that they're not quite as interested in. And then something that's detracting is something that maybe smells kind of, like chamomile or woodworm or valerian and things like that they don't like the smell of or whatever. And so what I had been originally thinking is that I would, on these borders of the garden, plant a sacrificial bed on the outside, and then put a row of detracting type plants on the inside of that, so they'll be all happy out there eating their stuff, and then they won't want to come in, right? That was the plan. So I started looking at invasive sites about invasive plants, because I don't want to be planting a bunch of invasives. I started scratching those ideas and started thinking that maybe what I ought to do for weed suppression on my borders there, because I don't want to put down cardboard or something, because the slugs, they just live underneath it. Oh my gosh. It's starting to snow a bit. And so maybe actually go and look for native plants, and maybe kind of move some native plants over along the edges or something, on the borders outside the fence. And then I was also thinking I really need a lot more flowering plants, because I really want to attract beneficial insects and kind of get a little bit of a ecological balance going on here in the garden. And so there are things like fireweed and stuff like that. That was the other thing too I had to think about, like, are the deer gonna just eat it? Are they just gonna eat it down if it's outside the fence? So like, okay, plant something native outside the fence. Inside the fence, slugs don't like green onions, leeks, fennel, garlic, things like that. So maybe I would want to plant a nice row pretty thickly of that sort of thing. I don't know, I really do need an area right inside the fence that I can walk along and move my wheelbarrow along. So maybe what I'll do is extend that sand mote and put it along this border too, and then plant the leeks and whatever, and garlic and whatever else inside that slug mote. Boy, that sure does shrink down my garden a little bit. But anyway, that is kind of what I'm thinking. And then I was thinking, oh my gosh, it's really starting to snow. So then I was thinking that in the corners maybe, or some places in the garden, I might actually, that's where I would plant like a little sacrificial bed. And both cutworms and slugs like brassicas, like they like kale, they like cabbage and things like that. But here's the thing. Let's start talking about predators for a second here, because this is kind of going to help me. This is kind of going to help me with the design of my sacrificial bed. Is it really like starting to, anyway, it's snowing. So this is the thing. Predators of slugs and cutworms. Toads that we have here. Toads, birds, I guess beetles, and I've seen some beetles. I don't know if they're big enough to eat the slugs, but, so this is the deal. Last season, I had this problems with slugs, and I go out at night. Both the cutworms and the slugs are out at night. So the birds can kind of get them, but once they go to sleep, then free for all for the slugs and the cutworms. So I was out here, I was collecting my slugs, and then I had started seeing cutworms. So I was looking in the kale, and oh my gosh, cutworm here, and the sugar snap peas, cutworms there. I have this bucket, and I had been previously taking the slugs out to the road and smashing them with a rock. And this time I had all these cutworms now too, and I'm just like, what is this going to be every night? Like, so I was like, forget it, man. So I took them out, to the thing and I just dumped them there. But this is the deal. This is what I saw out there one night. I saw this little rustling in the grass, and I had my headlamp on, took a look. It was a toad out there, getting used to me bringing him dinner every freaking night. And so I'm kind of like, and then I had come through here one time and it was dark, and what I see this thing moving, another toad, and I'm like, dude, toads. So so I have to think about that. Whenever I plan this, I need to think about, you know, where they're at, what they're looking for. So in that sacrificial bed, I want something that's kind of low lying, because those cutworms will climb up a kale, the spotted cutworms, and then a toad's not going to be able to get them once they're up in there. So I was thinking something low lying like bok choy, which seems like when I've planted that before, like everything just eats it. They're like all full of holes and stuff like that. So I've got bok choy, something that can be kind of low lying that the toads can get at. And also my fencing, my deer fencing kind of goes down on the ground, and I think I want to probably lift it up just a little bit so that you know, the deer aren't going to get in it, but the toads can kind of get in it. And I know that we have got some, you know, little pondy areas and stuff around here, but I was thinking that maybe I actually should make some ponds that are kind of closer to the garden. And then as far as birds, I've seen birds come down and they get those moths that end up turning into those cutworms. And they're all balancing up here in the trees. And so, you know, previously I thought, oh, I'm just going to cut down all these trees and eventually expand my garden. But I think there's one back here that would have been where one of the greenhouses would go, and I think that I might just leave it and work around it because they seem to kind of hang out up there looking around for bugs. The other thing was that I like to plant my sugar snap peas along the edges or the border of the garden, because otherwise they shade out. They'll be shading out 2 rows, and so in that situation they only shade out 1 row. The slugs and the cutworms like the sugar snap peas, so they say that they don't like cilantro and parsley. So I thought I would plant interseed cilantro and parsley with the sugar snap peas. And so I guess slugs like the young plants. So as long as I can get them to grow and mature, the parsley or whatever, that maybe I can keep them more out of my sugar snap peas. That would be an additional thing that I could do. And then also keep the things that I really don't want to be hit more in the center of the garden, like my lettuces. So here's the other thing that I have to think about, is that I've got overwintered cutworms in this original area of the garden. And so I don't want to plant stuff that they're gonna come out and hatch in the spring and then just start eating on. So I got to think about that when I decide what to plant there. But in this new area of the garden, there is not, there shouldn't be anything overwintered, so I can use insect netting to try and keep out those moths that would go and lay their eggs on my stuff. So I need to be really good about getting that insect netting on there. So yeah, I guess the other thing would be to talk about what I'm thinking to do for the greenhouses, and we'll go inside the greenhouse in just a sec. But our plan is to have 2 greenhouses. What we're talking about now, when I say I'm talking about Tyler building these greenhouses and me being the helpy helperton. And we're going to build them out of metal and then shrink wrap them. And we're talking about decommissioning this one and using it as a shed for the little boat, and then putting the 2 new ones right here over these raised beds. So I know, like with the garden, this original greenhouse probably has slugs and cutworms in it. And so I need to be cautious, because I'm talking about maybe putting cucumbers in there, and slugs like to eat baby cucumbers. I guess they're not quite as interested in the mature ones. So I might need to do like collars or something around the babies until they get mature enough. So I need to think about that with those raised beds. And then here in the new raised beds, there shouldn't be anything in that soil like slugs right now, hopefully. So I'm going to plant the basil. Will be that this will be kind of a rotation for my basil there. So yeah, let's go inside the greenhouse and we'll talk about what I'm going to do to try and keep slugs out of the raised beds. I'm going to try and get around here. Oh, this is kind of pretty. Look at this. Winter wonderland. Whoa. Okay, I gotta get around this greenhouse. Okay. think we're snowed in a bit here, but I think I might be able to muscle my way through. All right, so we're here in the greenhouse, and I will show you kind of what I'm planning here. Okay, so you see the edges along here. I was looking online at that site that talks about slugs, and they have this stuff, this barrier, this metal barrier that you can put along here. Now I was kind of concerned about, like, would I have enough room between here and here? But with the new greenhouses, it's going to be a metal frame, so I should have plenty of room to stick something along here. The only problem is that that stuff seems to be only available in the UK, where that website is, and so I might have to bend something and do it myself. I don't know how that's going to work. But they, on that website, they do a number of different trials, like with copper, and they say that's not really 100%. The wider you make it, the better it is, but it's not really 100%. But they don't like to go around the little corners and the corners of this, that metal barrier that they show there. So, of course, there might be slugs already in the soil here, so I would have to, you know, kind of pick them out and, you know, transport them elsewhere. They say you're supposed to transport them like a mile or something, but I think they're not going to want to as easily come through that muskeg area in the front, and also, you know, all that gravel. So I think I probably can pretty safely just take them out, you know, to the road. So that's kind of what I want to do in the greenhouses, and let's kind of get back out of here. Yeah, doing lots of planning. We're talking about doing, hopefully, the greenhouses within maybe, gosh, I don't know, maybe this next month we can kind of get those going. A couple of things that I forgot to say. I also want to put down those flat boards as a trap for the slugs so I can check them the next day. A lot of people use beer traps, but I don't really want to do this because I guess it really attracts slugs from a long distance. Nematodes do work on slugs, but I'm not going to use this as a first choice because then I have to buy something and bring it from, you know, off-site. I was reading about this blight-resistant and slug-resistant potato called Sarpo Mira. If I can get a hold of that, I'd be interested. And in the past, I've used dwarf white clover interseeded with my plants to build soil, but I'm not sure if I want to do that because it might be good slug habitat. So I still need to decide on that. Hey, so I'm inside because it's cold outside. And what do you think of my shoulder pads? What do you think? Maybe what I should do is go like this. They really should be pretty dramatic like this. They just need to be right out at the edge there. So then it looks like I have shoulders, even though I don't. So let's do this. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, I have shoulders. That's amazing. It looks pretty nice, actually. So then what I'm trying to say is that I think that you should get yourself some slugs, because just like plant the cabbage everywhere, let them gobble it down, because slugs are fun.